Sorry, space on my phone was running low, so I'm doing too many of these videos. But in the briefing, they were talking about the restaurants not being a definitive cause of the spread. I would say, hey, look at that more if you want to look at something. I mean, people aren't sticking to only their household, and that's not being emphasized anymore. And for better or for worse, but there's probably much more likely chance of it spreading than walking outside, not interacting with people. So that bothered me with it, and that was Dr. Nesbitt. And just to follow up, to talk about her a little bit, they, talk about the tragedy of deaths happening, which it, is a very sad thing. In the last week there in DC, there was 3 people who died from the virus, right? But then a question was asked to her, do you think that the treatments are part of the reason? Because that number is way down, and there were days last week where nobody died from it. And they asked her, do you think that is because the treatments are getting better? And she said, there are only 3 treatments. Only one of them is shown to reduce the likelihood of mortality, and the other 2 just shorten the time and stay in the hospital, in the ICU, which I don't know if the other 2 just simply, help you die faster. They also seem like they would reduce the mortality, but it's like when you talk about a death being tragic, and then you say you don't think the treatments you don't name the treatments, and then you don't think the treatments are making an impact on the mortality, even though one is known to. I mean, you're basically saying you're emphasizing the death and not emphasizing. I mean, it should be a party, it should be a celebration, it should be a miracle that we have things that can treat it now. And I think that that's where the emphasis should be placed, and they don't seem to place it there. And it's just strange to me. It's almost like you want it to be deadly, you want it to be a problem, because you're not recognizing some very important things like, hey, the treatment is getting better, we have found things that can help, and there are less people dying. And it's amazing. I looked at that information just for the months of June and July in DC, and in June you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people dying a day. And then in July, the numbers start to decrease, and you get down to days where there's no deaths, and that's a really positive thing. It seems like when you emphasize or focus one way or another, I think that shows a lot of where your motivation is at, and it's hard to say exactly why these things are happening because you don't know what the motives are of people. But if you don't see any of this, I think that you're not looking. For me, I'm fine to say that, as I looked at it, took into consideration all the information that I could gather, some people just simply aren't wanting to emphasize the positive things, and it's not about the safety of the people around them anymore. It's about some other political reason, and I think that this mask mandate in DC is a perfect example of that. There's no evidence that wearing a mask outside is going to make you more safe, and it seems like there's other things that are problematic at the same point. So those things aren't being addressed. So my best advice for you in this climate, in this time period, is to be strong and courageous, be safe, carry on.